The Thermite Collection by James O'Brien. Narrated by James O'Brien. Introduction. Unfortunately, the origin of the events is still highly questionable. The mention of the city of Alexandria is, of course, of no help at all in pinpointing the location of the historic battle where thermite was likely first weaponized, nor in aiding in the rediscovery of the hopefully non-fictional Forest of Sanctuary, as I have taken to calling it. I happened upon mention of these documents when discussing my research into the use of thermite with a colleague of mine, a historian. I figured his mindset would complement mine well for the purposes of my research, being of an exclusively scientific mind myself. He knew little of the nature of thermite, save for its name and general function. After elaborating on the details of the compound, such elaboration being surprisingly tolerable to my colleague, he mentioned with apparently newfound intrigue a set of historic salvage documents detailing the use of a substance curiously similar in description to what I had just summarized for him. These documents, he said, were found sealed in bottles under the floorboards of a wrecked ship off the coast of New York. I forget entirely what else he said about the ship, except that it seemed to have no further relevance to my research. He said the exact location of the documents suggests they were smuggled aboard by a regular passenger, though why such documents would require that level of secrecy in transit was a mystery to him. That was until he realized that the documents were a compilation of memories detailing the discovery of thermite and its first use in war. Once we realized the gravity of our discussion, we immediately began work on compiling this translated collection of the memories of figures all but lost to the vastness of history. Herein you will find a surprisingly compelling narrative, though the story of how the thermite was originally discovered by the kingdom in question is likely a fiction contrived to conceal their true method of discovery, as it involves a confrontation with a dragon. However, what follows correlates well with sporadic documentation during that era of what seems to have been a short-lived superweapon. Prologue. Near the end of a medieval world war, a lone kingdom remains unconquered by a villainous empire. The empire is strong, with much of its goal of world domination now complete, a capital city with walls of an irregularly impenetrable material. And a capital city with walls of an irregularly impenetrable material. Its final conquest poses a little threat. This last kingdom knows its only chance at survival is to strike at the heart of the empire, to take the capital city and claim leadership of its power. In desperation, they turn to ancient legend, that of Dragon's Bane, a substance that burns hotter than dragon fire. With it, they can breach the wall to the Empire's capital city, sending in assassins to eliminate those who would most resist supplantation. None living know of Dragon's Bane as anything other than myth, so a single knight is tasked with confronting the last known dragon for information about the final hope for the kingdom. Phoenix. Don't need the quiver anymore, I just need speed. If it's here, I need to get to it before he gets to me. I want to look back, see just how small the dragon appears in this forest of massive, otherworldly trees. It would be the last thing I ever see. This looks like the right path. It can't be far now, probably at the top of that hill just a little ways off. I wonder if it's still here, still suspended from the trees I didn't believe would be able to support a temple's worth of stone. He's gaining, but the fire stopped. Well, it stopped coming from his mouth. This must be it, in the recess at the cusp of the ascent. Closer than I thought. Good news for sustaining a lack of severe lacerations. It's stranger and more beautiful than I imagined. Massive blocks hewn from what appeared to be local boulders floating in midair on rope, some of it as thick around as me. Pillars erected not of their own integrity, but of taut lines extending to the monstrous limbs nearby. A full roof of individual chunks of unimaginably massive stone. This is it. If the sanctuary is here, its legendary contents must be as well. That's how I'll win. There it is. It can't be anything other than an egg, dark, solid, and floating in an odd, rust-colored powder. As I approach one of the pillars, I raise my already drawn sword, now a viable threat. One swift cut and everything crumbles, crashing down upon the egg, and possibly the dragon as well. I don't have to wait long for him to thrust his head through the entrance. The knowledge! I've won. You are of no threat to me. I cut this rope, everything falls down, right onto what may very well be the last egg of your kind. His voice resonates in my chest, as if emanating from within my own body. Must I repeat myself? That is not a threat to me. False. The objective of every living being is to ensure the prosperous survival of its eventual offspring. I thought dragons were perfect logicians. Do I have to explain things for you? Fool. Your effort is true, but has been in vain. The knowledge you seek has not been earned. The last of your kind, your own blood, your successor, your legacy. I threaten the continuation of your very essence. How is that not threatening to you on an individual level? I will admit, you are vastly superior to most humans, but your persistence will be your downfall. I enjoyed the unexpected challenge, but you should now leave, as will I. I drag my blade along the stony pillar. The scraping sound is undeniable. A threat. It is a mystery to dragons why humans have survived so long. Often they prioritize insatiable curiosity over their own well-being, as you are doing now. Is that fear talking? Perhaps annoyance. I propose a compromise. I shall give you part of what was promised. In return, you and your kind leave this place forever. How defensive of you. As if of one's own child. Of the few emotions dragons have been known to feel, rage was the most prominent. What was until now stoic and calculating turns into a glowing red cauldron of desperate action. The dragon lunges in my direction, but not quite at me. His jaws are open wide as he approaches the center of the sanctuary. He means to swallow the egg, granting it ultimate security. The fire grows outside. I cut the rope as the rest of his body breaks open into the sanctuary, doing just as much damage as I am with one swift motion. I quickly make my way to the side exit I eyed before placing myself in the interior. Snaps and crashes rapidly ensue. They don't stop for a while. Nothing moves but the fire. I call out, "The knowledge!" I wait. Still nothing. The roof lies like a grid of destructive rock across what was once the sanctuary floor, with a bulge that rises from the center. I see what is likely a horn among the rubble. As I climb on top of my own devastational doing, I confirm it is the dragon's head, seemingly lifeless. Finding my way down a crack, I approach the jaw of the beast, which is thoroughly pressed shut. His teeth are exposed, so I go about chopping off the ones blocking my line of sight to where the egg must now be. If nothing else, this should confirm life or death. 5 teeth in, and still no movement. The beautifully and randomly lined steel of my sword shows little wear from its otherwise exhaustively taxing task. I think I just killed a dragon. 2 or 3 teeth more and I should be able to reach in and feel around. I should have started closer to the neck. That's it. It's in here. If I cut off a couple more teeth, I should be able to get both arms in and yank it out. Sooner would be better than later. Cutting dragon teeth is no easy feat. This is it. I've got both hands on it now, but it won't budge. The cracks exposed to the outside grow ever more luminous. But the sun is setting. I need to hurry. I grab the egg one last time, placing both my feet on the side of the dragon's jaw. I pull and push at once with all my strength, and out the egg comes, sending me flying into the block behind me. I get up. I left my scabbard when on the run, so if I want my sword I'll have to carry it out by hand. That or the egg. Last I heard, there aren't many dragon eggs in town. The sword stays on the floor. As I rise from the rubble and ruins, I look down upon the egg, my first real good look at it. That's odd. Was that crack there before? Realization. Your Highness, here he comes. So he survived. I would have gone myself to face the dragon, but these tedious tactics don't take care of themselves. How do you make sure your kingdom doesn't get swallowed up in treachery like the rest of them? You win the war. How do you win the war? You take their capital city. How do you take such a city as Alexandria? You breach the wall. How do you breach an unbreachable wall? With something hotter than dragonfire. How do you find something hotter than dragonfire? You ask a dragon. What do you do if they were right? What if it's just a myth? You pray. But it looks like I won't have to pray. As I peer off into the horizon, I can just barely make him out. He approaches slowly, and his gait appears toilsome. He seems well, though, well enough, considering. He must have just noticed the rider is sent to retrieve him, as some vigor now returns to his pace. He's carrying something. Could he have found it already? Did the dragon have some? Don't get your hopes up. We must always be prepared for the worst. That's a nice rock you got there. Should really help win the war. Maybe we can throw it over the wall and attack the enemy as they're marveling at its oddity. This is an egg. Yeah, and I'm a cooing cock. Hey, I know. Maybe we can bake a cake with it and serve it to the enemy as a peace offering. Boy, you're a genius. Shut up. This egg. I assume you have no reason to believe it'll hatch in time to be useful to us. Well, there's a small crack on it, but considering what I went through for me to get it, there's no way to be sure what that means. Your arm. What happened? Well, not really sure. I was carrying the egg away, then all of a sudden, an ember floated up, touched the egg, and the bottom of it burst into intense flame, but only for an instant. Sounds weaponizable. The bottom, you said? Why just the bottom? Well, it was in a bowl when I saw it in the sanctuary. I think whatever was in there was a last-ditch mechanism for All three of us knew exactly what just happened. We found it. Discovery. I'm no alchemist, but apparently I'm the best we've got. If it can melt through any of my swords, it should be able to breach the wall. I won't be able to make it any better than it already is, but if the dragon sphere it, I doubt I'll have any need to. There's so little of it, though. Maybe it's just rust? But that can't be right. It seems like there's something else in there, too. A pure metal, perhaps? It's too well mixed to easily make it out. At any rate, it's time to test it. See what it can do. Where's that sword I hammered out of shape earlier? Holy Mother of God. This is no tool of man. This is death from monsters. Such violence, heat, blinding light. It sent burning bits of itself flying onto my arms from several feet away. And God, do they burn. No man should have such a weapon, for that's exactly what it is. Or at least, that's what any remotely intelligent general would use it for. Death. Not breaching a bloody wall. Death and fear. The question is, do we use it? Do I tell anyone what it's truly capable of? Do we unleash such death and violence in our hour of desperation, or do we sacrifice ourselves to a world that may never have to see it? My duty is to the king, and he demands to know. And none of us deserve to die. But do any of them? Do any of them deserve to die to this powdered hell? Counsel. He could be right, but there's no other way. The king was informed as well, and hasn't stopped our scheming. And though I'm his hand, he is the mind of the kingdom. I trust him more than he trusts himself. And he is no coward. They talk of assassination, breaching the wall in secrecy. But could we really pull it off? Are we powerful enough to assassinate an emperor? Maybe. Just maybe. If we don't just use it to breach the wall. I hate these thoughts, but this is war. Lives will be lost regardless, and with the numbers equal, our men's lives will be lost only over my dead body. We use it as a distraction. Burn the city. Burn the city and burn the wall. Already I can see the hell. Is this the only action a desperate man, a desperate kingdom can take? To unleash hell? One thing's for sure. No one's saying anything about a better option, so I must speak. What if we... Horror. The screaming wakes me up. Blood-curdling. I've heard it before. A mother is witnessing the death of her child. It is rapidly drowned out by other screams. All of them. The full cacophony of the suffering of hell. I grab my sword and run out. Whatever is occurring, it does not afford time for the donning of armor, that much is certain. As I exit my home, I see close to me among the masses a woman running away with her 2 children, an adolescent, and the baby that child is carrying. I make the 3 my ward, and begin making haste alongside them. And then I look up. I have heard of fireworks, but these are not consistent with colorful celebration. These are showers of flaming death. Lit arrows are shot into the sky from beyond our solid walls, and hit unseen packages in the dead of night, far above our heads. When they strike their target in the blackness, it bursts, burning more brightly than anything I have ever seen, exploding outward, and sending back down to earth smaller packages with more fuel for what I would believe was fired directly from hell itself, but for its origin among the clouds above. Among the screams, the chaos, and the now engulfed city, there is only one option for survival. Follow the crowd. They're all headed in the direction of the gate. That's where the arrows are coming from, but even a fool would choose a sword over this fire, and I agree with them. Besides, I have a sword of my own. And then, my greatest fear. One must have burst right above us. By the time I realize it is already showering down upon us, I only have time to get my back and arms over the mother, whose hand I am holding, as she is holding that of her daughter, which was not holding the baby. And then the daughter starts screaming. I make her let go, the soldier I am fighting the human inside me that wants to do something for the tiny life that had just been engulfed in flame brighter than the sun itself. I have to stop her from reaching for it, to save her arm from burning any more than it already is. Now that the baby is on the ground, I doff my coat and try to put out the fire on the daughter's arm. It cares not for my coat. In fact, it appears to hate it with the same burning passion with which it hates everything else. I look around. A bucket of utility unmentionable, which has yet to be dumped out, is all there is for me to try dunking her arm into. Thank God it works. The mother, this whole time, is wasting her clothes attempting to extinguish the body of her babe. Her clothes have done nothing, but the fire on the body is looking more normal now, so I attempt to smother it with my shirt. It works. The mother, after her clothes have failed to relieve her child of its flames, has collapsed in anguish, leaving only the daughter with the presence of mind to be able to grieve while maintaining control over her body. The daughter picks up the body of her now extinguished sibling. I know not what will haunt me more, the image of what still remained of her sibling, or the image of the face of that sister, as she looked upon the largely skeletal remains of her sibling. Perspective. The aching of my teeth now taints the transcendent experience of flight, which until now was my relief from the concerns of the troubles of those who rule the ground. And now they dare to put fire in the sky. From this high up I can see nothing but the bursting of their weapons and the city on fire, though the sound of the screams reaches me with no issue. Is this all that men are? Eye for an eye, they say. My thoughts now gravitate toward my child. Somehow, though, my fears of it being in the hands of men are quelled by the memory of the man in question. His persistence was for the defense of the kingdom he serves, he said. He did not lie. I believe a man who cares that much about the others with whom he lives may very well extend that defensiveness to all life, even to a baby dragon. Even I failed to adequately defend my child from man. However, the man in question bested a dragon with strength, wit, and, most of all, courage. He knows where to find me. Perhaps he shall return with my child one day. Epilogue. Several other documents were among the ones for which, above, are English translations. These other documents were numerous reports from the Resistance Kingdom of the occurrences of, and outcome from, the siege of Thermite, which I have distilled into the following epilogue. They began at midnight, a foggy, cloudy night for which they had prayed. The catapults were invisible to the sentries on the wall far into their effective range. They began slowly, with a single package, waiting until they heard screaming begin to send more. The screaming began. Then the building started. They meant to build a ramp, under the cover of wheeled shelters, to create unbridled access over the wall itself, ready to make use of its stairs to then descend into the city en masse. It would take some time to build a ramp up to the top of the wall. They expected that panic would give them that time. They did not need it. The kingdom's considerateness was their success. They had chosen a point of attack near a lake just outside the city walls, so that they could stop what there was to stop of the fire, once their objective was complete. The Thermite created such hell within the city that all the inhabitants of the affected neighborhood ignored the presence of catapults and an army, flooded out their closest gate, and rushed straight for the lake. No soldiers dared engage any agent of the kingdom. By the time the official surrender of that neighborhood of the city was issued, the assassins were in place with their individual targets, waiting for their signal. The messenger, delivering it by flaming arrow of specific color, gave instruction to, instead of executing their targets, follow them until they were informed of the terror that had been perpetrated upon a neighborhood of their capital city. Then reveal themselves. All heads of the empire were either petrified or in denial. Respectively, they either readily relinquished control to the assassins, or failed to believe the reports of the siege of Thermite, necessitating fulfillment of the assassin's role.